A niche, an ecological niche, is where individuals live, where they inhabit. And a niche is a specialized area where something lives or inhabitants. And I gave an example to some of you about an economic niche. Like if I wanted to fill a need in a niche, I could be a medical salesperson or medical supply salesperson. To where if I wanted to get into a niche market, I could sell a specific, specialized piece of equipment into a specific industry, and I would be filling a need in that niche. And I wouldn't be trying to sell all medical supply to the entire world. Now, a niche is a specialized area, so I'd sell it into a specific one. Well, in biology, we also have niches, where you can have a fundamental niche, which is an area where something can live, and a realized niche, where they actually do live. So looking at this diagram here, I have two different types of species of barnacles. And someone asked me the other day what a barnacle is, and this is what they are. They're this shelled mollusk that attaches onto the side of different rocks or other organisms. And I have this Chithalmus and the Beninus barnacle. For pronunciation, I'm just going to say C barnacle and B barnacle. So here I have the B barnacle, or C barnacle in brown, and the blue barnacle in the B barnacle is blue. So the fundamental niche of the brown C barnacle is the entire rock area. But because of this competition, the realized niche is just this small little area up top. And that might be because of the blue barnacles cannot inhabit that high up, and that they outcompete the brown barnacles. So the fundamental niche of the blue barnacles is just here, and their realized is exactly the same as the fundamental, suggesting that the blue can outcompete the brown. So competition between species sometimes leads to what is known as competitive exclusion. And competitive exclusion is exactly how it sounds. During competition between two, one species gets completely excluded out of the environment because they are outcompeted. This has been on the AP environmental exam year after year on the multiple choice part, so it might be important to know. Competitive exclusion. We have two species of paramecium, Aurelia and Caudium. We'll say the blue ones and the orange ones. Now, if these are grown separately in the same environment, they equally do well. Their populations thrive. But if they're grown in that environment together, the blue ones tend to do the same, but the orange ones do not do well because the blue ones are consuming all the resources. So therefore, the blue ones are excluding the orange ones from the environment. They're outcompeting, and therefore the other species does not do well at all. Competitive exclusion. So in summary, talked about so far what is evolution. Remember that evolution is the change in allelic frequencies over generations. Well, the evolutionary theory is the idea that all species descended from an earlier ancestral species, and explains how life has changed and why life has changed to be so diverse. A couple terms need to know: gene pool, a population, genetic makeup, so all the different types of genetic makeup within that population. We have two different types of evolution you could look at: micro, meaning small evolution, small genetic changes within a population, so you could look at the variation within one population. And then macroevolution, long-term, large-scale, and causing speciation, and how new species can be formed from ancestral species. The driving force behind new genetic makeup is mutations, and that can be a random change in the DNA sequence. And then natural selection is the driving force of evolution that selects for favorable mutations. and favorable meaning that it just does well in that environment. I remember in natural selection you have to have variation and then differences in reproductive and survivability. So natural selection causes alleles or sets of alleles that are beneficial to become more common in successive generations or generations that follow, and other less beneficial alleles to become less common. And an adaptation is the improved ability for an organism to survive and reproduce. A specific trait that increases these chances is called an adaptive trait, often caused by an environment to do one of the following. Species adapt through natural selection, migrate to another area, or they become extinct if they cannot adapt. Now this is new. We didn't talk about the different types of natural selection, but this will come in handy when we do our activity on Friday. There are 3 different types of natural selection. We've got directional. And directional is, say we have an equal variation within our population. But within that variation, only one type does well. And that one does well because you could have a selection pressure that the other ones are being weeded out by either a predator or some other factor, environmental factor, causing the population to shift towards one direction. So you'll see more of these individuals. Say the lighter color does better in the environment. Therefore you'll get directional selection where you'll have less of these individuals and more of these individuals. Stabilizing natural selection is where if you have variation within your population, the individuals in the middle tend to do the best, and the outside extremes of the variation do not do as well. So therefore, the selection will be driven inward to have individuals be more in common with characteristics. You won't have a directional selection where it's going one way or the other. You just have the individuals that are directly in the middle with their variation, not to one extreme, tend to do the best. And then last but not least is diversifying. And diversifying is where your extremes in your variation do the best, therefore having less of those that are alike to each and more of the extremes on both ends, therefore leading to more individuals here and here. And this one can lead to speciation of 2 different types of species. The other 2 can cause one population to change, but it will not lead into 2 separate species like diversifying will.